The 564th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. The Ukrainian armed forces have advanced more than a kilometer in the south, the commander of the Tavria group of troops, Oleksandr Tarnavsky, said today. Russian military telegram channels write about the advance of the Ukrainian army east of Novoprokopivka and about holding positions in the Robotyne and Verbovy areas. At the same time, yesterday the General Staff reported that the Russians deployed airborne troops near Robotyne and carried out more than 10 counterattacks, trying to restore the lost position. As for the changes in the Deep State Telegram channel map, this was not a promotion by the Russians, but a clarification. An interesting situation is developing in the second direction of the Ukrainian offensive near Bakhmut. Since the end of August, Western media have been actively writing that the U.S. military strongly advised the Ukrainian command to concentrate efforts on the offensive in the direction of the main attack on the Zaporizhia front, and in other areas, refrain from active actions. First of all, in the Bakhmut area, where Ukrainian troops have been attacking since May. Judging by the intensification of fighting in the Robotyne area and the transfer of reinforcements there, this recommendation was accepted. However, only partially. In the last week, after some lull, the offensive actions of the Ukrainian armed forces near Bakhmut have again intensified. The Ukrainian military announces an advance on the southern flank of the city, in the area of Klishchiivka and Avdiivka. The advance of the Ukrainian army is also confirmed by Russian military telegram channels, stating that the Ukrainian army already controls most of Klishchiivka and may have already taken Avdiivka. True, today they wrote that Russian troops in this direction launched a counterattack in order to regain lost positions. But, one way or another, the intensification of offensive actions near Bakhmut by the Ukrainian armed forces is taking place, which contradicts the recommendations of Western partners to throw all their forces to the south. Why did the Ukrainian command decide to resume the offensive near Bakhmut? From a military point of view, the recommendations of Western partners look logical. Bakhmut's strategic value is small. Even if he is released, it will be difficult to develop an offensive. A number of Ukrainian experts also point to this. For example, former advisor to the presidential office Arestovich said that he does not understand why the command of the Ukrainian armed forces spends so much effort fighting for the pile of rubble that Bakhmut has turned into, instead of throwing all its forces into the strategically much more important southern direction in order to cut off land corridor to Crimea. At the same time, the actions near Bakhmut may not have a military, but a political and information psychological logic. Ending the year without any major success is a greater risk for the military-political leadership of Ukraine, both in terms of maintaining the stability of Western aid and in terms of sentiment within the country. At the same time, the informational, political, and symbolic, in contrast to the military, significance of Bakhmut's liberation will be even stronger than that of Tokmak, will help strengthen faith in victory in Ukrainian society and stop the growth of bad moods. How realistic is it to take Bakhmut in the coming months? On the one hand, the Russians do not have such powerful fortifications as in the south. However, progress is also slow, especially in recent months. The fighting for the same Klishchiivka began back in May, that is, it continues longer than for Robotyne. Judging by the statement of the commander of the Ukrainian ground forces, Syrsky, the strategy of the Ukrainian armed forces is not to take Bakhmut head-on, but to try to outflank it, create a threat of encirclement and force Russian troops to leave the city. At the same time, as can be seen from the map, Ukrainian troops are still far from completing this task. At the same time, there has been no progress at all on the northern flank for a long time. In the south, as we see, there is progress. And, after taking the dominant heights in the Klishchiivka area, perhaps the situation on the southern flank for the Ukrainian armed forces will improve, creating prospects for a further offensive. But to cover Bakhmut, you will still have to cover a long distance. At the same time, as combat experience shows, in the event of the advance of the Ukrainian armed forces, the Russians transfer reserves to prevent a breakthrough. In general, the task of capturing Bakhmut is also not an easy one. Therefore, it is possible that the Ukrainian command will continue to try to attack in different directions and, then, having assessed the prospects, will throw the main forces into the area where the likelihood of success will be higher. For example, the Ukrainian armed forces recently launched a local counterattack south of Avdiivka in the direction of Yevhenii. 2 days ago, when the Russian military stormed positions in the north of the city, the Ukrainian military carried out a brilliant operation and occupied part of Yevhenii. They were able to gain a foothold there. Now fighting continues in the populated area itself, said the head of the Avdiivka Military Civil Administration Barabash. Judging by the map published by the Ukrainian telegram channel Deep State, Ukrainian units recaptured part of the settlement from the north and the approaches to it. At the same time, Deep State writes that in this case we are talking about tactical advancement and one should not expect that in a month there will be fighting in the center of Donetsk. Friends, preparing these daily reports has become my full-time job. If these reports are important to you, please click the like and subscribe buttons. Also, if you want to support my work, if possible, financially, you can find the links in the description under the video. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.